Americans who are against the Biden student loan forgiveness. Why? I don't disagree with it per se, but without setting up systems to keep school costs in check, we will get this crisis to reoccur every few years as college costs keep skyrocketing. Before federal student loans were guaranteed, college was nowhere near this expensive. I'm against it as a solution, because schools will still charge $100,000 a year and lenders will still keep making ridiculous loans. Loan forgiveness doesn't make sense unless you also stop giving out the loans. Universities were able to increase their tuition so much because everyone was getting guaranteed student loans. And now you're putting down precedent that the loans can be forgiven. Does that sound wise to you? Band-aid solution, well, better than nothing, does not solve any of the root causes of the crisis, which is the unchecked guaranteed loaning practice paired with sizable interest rates. I think cutting the interest to 1 makes more sense. I only disagree with it because it doesn't address the fundamental problem with these loans, which is the predatory interest rates that make them damn near impossible to pay off. The government should be regulating those rates so students aren't being gouged and can actually pay the loans off with reasonable interest. Edit. Just want to clarify, I'm pro-loan relief. I just wish more was being done to address the core issue with these loans. But I would rather the government do something instead of continuing to do nothing. If the actual student loan program were re-evaluated, loan forgiveness wouldn't be an issue, because it won't change the for-more-profit mindset of the college system at all, and will maybe even make it worse in the very near future. Yes, it'll help tons of people now, but next week? Next year? Problem not solved. I don't think it addresses any long-term issues, just symptoms. I also think it's literally just to gain midterm support, because it doesn't address the primary issue that it claims to address, and there are way better options to address said issue. It's primarily a political bluff to win over young and emotional voters by insinuating there's a $10,000 check waiting for them if they vote Democrat in the next election. If you want economic relief, tax the rich more, tax corporations fairly, and regulate the healthcare industry to reduce prices. Any one of these 3 options have a higher ROI for the average student, let alone average American. I'm not against it per se, but even if they get it through, it's not going to change anything going forward. Yay, I get $10,000 off my loans, but what about future borrowers? The same problems will still exist. So yeah, I pay taxes, I'll happily take $10,000 of my money back in the form of student loan forgiveness, but it doesn't solve anything. Nothing is being forgiven. It is just being reassigned for others to pay. The government being a guarantor of student loans means that this debt falls on the taxpayer. The move to privatize education through loans is essentially another tax dodge of the baby boomers that own a large portion of the wealth in this country and now as a group represent an investor class who vote against anything that benefits those who work. We need government out of loans and watch college prices drop immediately. I'm not against them, but why not make it student loans anti-interest rates? People shouldn't profit off your inability to pay for education. Put interest rates on houses, cars, etc., but not on education. 1. It transfers the cost from the people who took out the loans to taxpayers, who didn't. 2. It creates an expectation that this will occur for every new group of students. 3. It disincentivizes schools to reduce costs. A better option would have been to require schools to provide refunds, and to penalize schools for increasing costs. An even better solution would be to allow students to discharge the debt through bankruptcy. That would end the whole student loan fiasco once and for all. Added second solution. I agree with what is being said by basically everyone on here. The only way I would see student loan forgiveness as a viable option is if it's the first step in a wider plan to deal with the student debt crisis. In other words, if debt is the symptom, cure both the cause and the symptoms. Otherwise, it just won't work. Most people on IBR will make very small payments for 25 years and then have them forgiven. Think about how big those balances will grow over 25 years. The taxpayers of tomorrow get to deal with that nightmare. The other part is the day those loans are charged off, their balances are considered taxable income. These are the twin towers created by current policies. The debt doesn't magically vanish. Regular schmo taxpayers who in many cases skipped college themselves will be forced to pay the debts that others willingly agreed to. It's not forgiveness of debt, it's moving the debt to people who didn't sign up for it. A lot of people in this feed don't understand who goes to college and takes out loans for that education. Most of the loan borrowers are working class or middle class citizens, so this does in fact help them. And it's better than doing nothing. The outcome of this only hurts those classes if we don't hold the greedy and the wealth hoarders accountable. This is a step in the right direction if we continue to address the problem of college and university cost inflation and predatory loans. And rich fuckers who don't pay taxes, because when you borrow money, you pay it back, that's why. That's why they call it a loan, Because my family ate mac and cheese so I could pay off all the school loans. Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi have both stated in interviews that the POTUS doesn't have the power to do what Biden did. But he did it anyway because he wanted to buy votes with other people's money. It's corrupt and unlawful. I'm fine with the interest being forgiven, or a good portion of it. But you weren't forced to take out the loans, that was a choice. You are responsible for your choices and debts, not the taxpayer. The real issue is let's make education more affordable. Class warfare. Except only one side is fighting, and they're doing really, really well. They even brainwash the people they're fighting to shoot themselves in the head. Because I paid my student loans, do you know if I will get that back? Do the millions of Americans who paid their student loans? It's not forgiveness. It transferred the debt to millions of Americans who either paid their way through school, paid their student loans, or didn't go to college. Why should the guy who went to a trade school and is a plumber pay for someone else's student loans? I agree with others that the issue is for-profit colleges. We need to fix this before discussing student loan forgiveness. People shouldn't pay off debt that isn't theirs. Poor people shouldn't have to pay richer people's loans. Paying the student loans means universities will continue to overcharge. It does precisely fuck all to fix the original problem of needing to go into debt to go to college. Or the amount of debt that is required. It also mostly benefits upper middle class people at the expense of poor people who didn't have college as an option. Not American, but why force taxpayers to cover the personal debt of others? Why the hell should a non-educated person who doesn't have a great earning potential compared to the educated person be forced to pay off the student loans of the person who is probably already richer than him and will probably out-earn him going forward? Why do people think this a great idea? To make a government program explicitly designed to steal from the poor and give to the rich. I didn't sign your loan agreement, you did. College graduates on average earn much more over the course of a lifetime than high school graduates. Why should high school graduate taxpayers subsidize those who will be better off than they are? Because I decided which university to attend and how much I worked during and where because of their tuition reimbursement based solely off cost of attendance. I know many people who took out loans for housing, living expenses and lived it up in college, not giving a f. Some now have fancier university names in their degrees, and if their debt is wiped out, they don't have to be held accountable for the consequences of their decisions. For the very American individualist ideal that each is responsible for their own decisions. You take the money, you pay it back. Simple as that. It doesn't fix the issue causing it and just makes taxpayers foot the bill as usual. Education should be free. Education is twisted these days. It's about training kids to become the next line of workers. GOP crabs in a bucket syndrome. Moral argument: education should be free, and this does nothing to change that. Because it's not fair to young people who don't go to school and say, get a loan to start a small business. They still have to pay it back, and will most likely end up earning far less than a graduate. The problems are the schools which charge too much. As long as the state doesn't regulate them, every forgiveness is just a bonus paid to thid schools with tax money. I could not afford to go. Clearly they could not either. I'm okay with loan forgiveness, but just like anything else, the degree should be revoked too. Fair is fair. Because it doesn't fix the underlying problem, we'll just end up in the same spot down the road due to colleges being able to hack up school loans. It's also some personal accountability. Degree earning potential is out there, yet some students choose to rack up huge debt. Getting degrees with low earning potential, giving them a pass, hinders them from learning the consequences of their actions. It's also a slap in the face to those who worked, saved, and paid off their debt. Well, since you were asking, why should I teach you a highly technical, very difficult skill for free? I have no problem teaching you, but my time and experience deserve to be rewarded, especially if you benefit monetarily. That is why I am against it. When you borrow money from your fellow citizens through the student loan program, we expect you to pay it back. Then we can lend it to the people following you for their educations. It's a simple way to keep our people educated, but borrowers must repay for the future of others.